Thanks, Dale. We are on the set of Little Round Top in the movie Gettysburg. The very trees you see around us mostly were in the movie. You just saw the wall, the stone wall from the movie. And this was a substantial shoot. This was not something that was shot in a few hours or in just a day or anything like that. So we're gonna explore this with Dale Fetzer. He's the military choreographer for the Gettysburg movie. Dale, what happened here and how'd the shoot go?
This shoot was very complicated. And the story is, they're at the end of the line. This is it. They needed actors.
They needed actors. They needed as many as they could get. We got all gear on. I had all my gear. These guys borrowed their gear. We went out there, told us where to get in the line. And since I was a sergeant, I know I'm behind the line, so you don't really see me very much until one last scene. It's actually shot from the back, my better side.
So you see how there are trees, but it is still a little bit open. And it's possible for units to fire 100 yards through the woods at the enemy who is attacking. And a lot of areas around you don't get that feel, especially in the summer. There's a lot of underbrush. So they chose an area that even today has remained like a grove that you can actually see through the trees. And that's pretty accurate. Now, we're away from the Gettysburg Sill where there's a lot of rocks. So this area doesn't have as many large rocks as the area of Little Round Top where they fought. So that's one difference. But the hill and the slope of the hill is very similar. And you can see, if you're watching the movie, you can see the later areas beyond the woods where the road is today.
The amazing thing was the very first day. It was a foggy morning. Now all the crew was already in there. Ron Maxwell was already back in there. And I don't know who said it to us, said, okay, we believe the 20th Maine had about 10 minutes to set up earthworks to protect themselves. You guys have 10 minutes to do whatever you can. Goosebumps right now. We scrambled. I mean, you saw, maybe there were 50 or 60 of us because a lot of people were doing Reb that day to be attackers. So all the reenactors weren't there, limited numbers. So we scrambled and we first got rocks, all various sizes of rocks, laid them down, and then started gathering wood.
So when he started filming this scene, the Union line was right here behind you, a double line. We were attacking up here, then they cut, then we're now wounded, we're lying in front of this. That was another scene. Then we have Confederates coming up from your left, and that's when they took it into a single line.
Now, behind me is roughly the angle where the 20th Maine would have refused its line. Now, it's not a very complicated maneuver that they're gonna do out here. It's undouble file, but in reality, when people are shooting at you, it's very complicated. So what they're gonna try to do is extend their line out and then basically put it back like a V.
Every regiment had at least 2 major battle flags, and it seems kind of stupid in today's modern parlance to go into battle with guys waving flags, making big targets of themselves. But most people don't realize that in the Civil War, there is no way to communicate. There's no radios, there's no walkie-talkies. The communication is going to be done by not voice because guns are loud.
The volume of noise
Yeah.
in combat, when both sides in that kind of density are really firing at each other in those trees, the sound just echoes.
The idea that you could hear a commander shout bayonet, you could see, the reality would be you could see men fixing their bayonets and starting to go forward, and that would spread along the regimental line and they would execute the command that Chamberlain wanted.
And even that type of situation too, the guys that were portraying lieutenants and captains and the company officers using their swords, that struck me the most, is using their direction.
Yeah.
You could actually hear them over the noise rather than Jeff Daniels standing 20, 30, 40 feet away.
Yeah.
All this is done, they don't have to say anything. It's all with the colors and the fact that these men were shoulder to shoulder.
One thing I want to point out is right past Dale, you might be able to see a tree that splits into 2 trunks. If you look in the movie, you'll be able to catch that tree over and over appearing from both sides, actually, because when the Union line will bend back later, you can see that tree from the other side. I just walked the path walked by Kevin Conway during this portion of the fighting here on Little Round Top, by which point he's already been wounded and he's about to load and fire somebody else's
rifle musket that he's just picked up off the ground. But Kevin Conway plays Buster Kilrain. In actual point of fact, Kilrain was not a real person who fought at the Battle of Gettysburg. He was a figment of the imagination of author Michael Shara. And in many ways, Kilrain acts as the everyman. He is in place of you, the reader, or us, the audience, the quintessential cynic and almost the doubting Thomas of this entire affair within the 20th Maine, sort of casting questions on the value and the meaning of all this fighting.
Men are down, they're running out of ammunition, and an orderly from another regiment comes charging up the hill, running up to Chamberlain and salutes and says, you know, I have the honor to report. And it's the only time in the movie where Chamberlain loses his patience, because he says, what? Because the guy's just standing there saluting when everything is going to hell around him.
Chamberlain decides they're going to swing like a door, and Spear is trying to grasp it, and he says in sort of repetition, so what do you mean, charge? Like, I thought that was very effective. He was coming along, he was catching up to what his commander was thinking.
We did a number of shots of the bayonet charge. So the first time we shot the bayonet charge, we did the wheel. That was the only time I did that one, because there were all these guys laying on the ground who were pretending to be casualties. And you have a real bayonet on your rifle. You know, real rifle, real bayonet, not a rubber thing. And you're running down the hill, everybody's yelling and screaming and everything. And I was like, slippery shoes, rocks everywhere, bodies laying all around that are fully alive.
There were a lot of rebel casualties. They were in front of us, so there was a lot of concern.
So the next time they shot it, I stayed up there like I was a casualty.
So they said the next scene, pick your path, including Joshua Chamberlain. So what he did, he got his sword out and he's walking down through here, he's tapping these reenactors. He wasn't going to pick his path, he wanted the reenactors to create a path. He was slapping on the sole of their boots.
I ran down with Jeff Daniels and Tom Howe each time, so we ran all the way down, dodging, jumping between, just leaping and jumping between the people on the ground.
And Spear is wheeling his, sword above his head. He's spinning in circles as he leads his soldiers down this slope here.
I was both a Confederate and a Yankee, so I charged myself and shot myself. So we were in both scenes in the charge. And at that day, my son was with me, so we really had a lot of fun.
I remember when he was shooting Little Round Top, and there was 5 attacks. And I thought, oh my God, this will never hold up in a theater. You know, I can't imagine an audience watching that happen 5 times, you know. And my God, they loved it. It was, and when I watched it, I loved it. It was brilliant.
I got to tell you, for the drama of a Civil War battle scene, I've seen few examples that are better than this.
And when he yelled bayonets, I was ready to boot. But when you see the movie, his eyes almost pop out when he said, bayonets!
Everybody was kind of standing around. We were getting ready to do a shot. I could see Jeff Daniels. He would stand there. He always read a book. And I thought it was really smart, because he's like, I'm in character. I don't want to talk to people.
I know of very few movies where the music was done so well and intertwined with the battle scene so well as it was here. If you think about the movie, this scene here on Little Round Top, this unit action between the 20th Maine and the 15th Alabama, this is the one unit action in the movie.
It really is on the inside of a fighting regiment.
That's great, Dale. I do think that what the shooting ended up doing was talking about the plight of the men of the 20th Maine. You got to know them. It wasn't like Pickett's Charge. This is some particular people. You know, it was some of the hotheads who saved, Tom Chamberlain. You got to care about it, and the back and forth and the way it had to go. It really taught a lot of people about tactics and how they fought, and maybe convinced a few people that people of the Civil War weren't quite as stupid as most people think they were when they see a Civil War movie.
There are hundreds of regiments at the Battle of Gettysburg, and every regiment is organized locally from a county or a town or a part of the state. And so when they show the 20th Maine, this is like many of the other units that were involved in the battle. The units are all from the same town. There are brothers and uncles and cousins all in the same units. So when they show Joshua Chamberlain with his brother Tom, that's not unusual. And when a unit's wiped out in a battle, a town is wiped out in a battle, and brothers are killed side by side, and fathers and sons are killed side by side, and it was just the way it was during the Civil War.
So we set up a bunch of tracking shots where the cameras went in front of the men on the line. We had them fire into the cameras.
I didn't care for it when they leveled their rifles at us and fired, because I've been around firearms my whole life, and you never point a firearm at anybody.
And the first thing I would say is, today we're not going to hurt anybody. There's going to be no mistakes made that's going to hurt a human being or an animal. We all on board with that? Safety, safety, safety. Every morning we had that conversation because we were living on a very, very hazardous set. We had muskets with real bayonets, muskets that could fire live ammunition, real pistols that could shoot live ammunition.
So when you showed up at this base camp off to my left here, you didn't know what you were going to do. Didn't know if you're going to get a Union uniform, didn't know if you're going to get a Confederate uniform. We got to fire cannons, but we had to be trained for that. There was a man from Colorado, Virgil Hughes, that taught us about safety.
I do remember that at one point, they did all the hand-to-hand fighting in the company that we were in. So they had stunt actors in there. And then stunt actors came in, they were jumping around and fighting, swinging rubber rifles. And anyway, so I'm on the ground with my head down on the ground. I'm not shooting, I'm not doing anything. I'm just got my head down while these guys are fighting over me. And at one point I was like, I wonder what's going on. And I looked up, and at the moment I looked up, somebody hit a real rifle. It spun like a top, hit me right in the jaw. I was like, okay, all right, I'm down. And there's this one guy who's stiff. He never fires, and he has a bullet hole in the side of his head. And that was based on the medical history of the Civil War.
Sort of the sightless eyes gazing down the barrel.
Yeah.
There's some examples of that at Big Round Top and elsewhere at other battles too.
This is my 20th Maine jacket. Yep, this was the actual jacket that I wore, and there it is. I guess, yeah, movie dirt does not come off.
Actual movie dirt.
Actual, yep, natural earth.
I have to tell a story about our buddy John. Without his glasses, he was blind as a bat. And so when they were doing the bayonet charge, John takes off his glasses, sticks them in his blouse, he's going down the hill with everybody else. Boom, right into a tree.
We get John up off the ground. He was kind of dazed. And they're like, okay, we're going to shoot it again. We're going to shoot everybody back up the hill. So we all go marching back up the hill. So Johnny pretty much gets in the same location that he was. Everybody's in position. All right, action. We're all charging down the hill. And I'm watching Johnny, and I'm like, man, it looks like he's going right for that tree again. Bam! Right into the tree a second time. Down he goes. So that time when we got back to the top of the hill, I physically took Johnny and I said, Johnny, you're moving over here. Because we did it again. That time he didn't hit the tree. Yeah.